So that pretty much wraps it up for the common web development tools. And now what I want to do is spend a little bit of time that we've got left talking about Spring MVC and the Spring Webflow tools that are included with MyEclipse for Spring. So as you can tell, we're kind of going into kind of more specific tools over and over. So what we're going to do is going to cover Content Assist, the Webflow editors, the dependency graph. We'll talk about the Spring controller, the Spring Annotation Editor. And then we'll talk about the code generation around Spring MVC and Spring Webflow. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to continue working with this existing project. And what I'll do is let me go to the folder here and let me create a new package. And I'm going to create a new controller, but I'm really just going to make it just a Java class. I'll call it MyController and hit finish. And then once again, rather than having you guys watch me write code, I'm just going to copy a really simple snippet of code in here. All right, so this is the new controller that I want to use in my project. And I'm going to, it has a dependency on the customer service. I'm going to use the facilities in Eclipse to have it automatically add the import statement for my customer service. And so this is the controller. This represents the service that I need to use from this controller, and this represents the event handler that I want to use. I want to map it to a specific URL for my application. As of right now, there's nothing Spring about this particular controller. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the Spring Annotations Editor, and it's going to say, hey, we don't recognize this as I would expect it to. Since I don't have any annotations on here, it says, hey, we don't recognize this as a Spring stereotype. If you would like to apply a Spring stereotype, go ahead and select one. So I'm going to go ahead and select Controller. And what it did for me at the most basic level is it added the controller annotation, and it added the controller import statement to the class. But now, once I've done that, now I can start to use the annotation editor for configuring all the other options. So I could go in here and start to figure out, okay, for a controller, what are my options, what is available using Content Assist, or I can just use the annotation editor for filling this stuff out. So I'll call this my webinar controller. I will specify that I want the scope to be singleton. I'm going to click on the service, and I'm going to specify that I want it to be injected using the @resource annotation, and I want it to. I'm going to use Content Assist to have it automatically inject one of the beans that already exist in my Spring project. So I'm going to go ahead and select the customer service in here. I'm going to switch down to the method, and I'm going to specify that this is meant to be a request handler by selecting the request mapping annotation. I will specify specifically which method I want it to handle, what HTTP methods I want it to respond to, and how I want my parameters to be handled. And that's it. I mean, within a few moments, I have a fully configured Spring controller, and that is valid, and that has all of the appropriate annotations where they need to be. Now, granted, this is a very simple scenario, but I wanted to show the audience how you can actually use the annotation editor for creating entirely new artifacts very quickly without having to this allows you to spend more time editing your code, and you can spend less time having to look through documentation in terms of what annotations are supported in which context. So let's go ahead and let's go to the project that I actually generated before this webinar started. I showed you what it looked like at runtime. Let's take a look at what this project. Let's take a look at some of the controllers that are in this project, so we can get a better feel for what the capabilities of the controller, the annotation editor for controllers. So I'm going to go to the generated folder here, and you can tell. I mean, there's a lot of code that was generated for us. I'm specifically interested in the controller code, which I put into this package. So if I open up customer controller, the annotation editor automatically fills in. I can see that it's been configured with a particular scope. I can see exactly how the dependencies are being injected, and I can change those if I want. I can take a look at the request handlers and see how basically what I did manually before, how they're actually configured. And then if I need to make any changes, I can do that as well. And if I have any questions about any of these configuration options or any of these annotations, help is just a hyperlink away. One of the other controllers I want to take a look at here is some of the REST controllers. So in addition to generating all the different front ends, I also specified that I wanted to create a RESTful service front end to this application. So in here, what I really want to point out is that the REST implementation that we're using is actually based on the REST support that was added with Spring 3.0. So the annotation, so if you're doing any REST service development with Spring 3.0, the annotation editor does support that those annotations as well, as you see here. And we're in this particular case, this controller has been configured to handle JSON use JSON as the payload. And one last thing I guess we'll take a look at in here is we'll take a look at the configuration file. Let's take a quick look at the web configuration file. So if I open this up here, open the dependency graph. Here are all the specific elements that were automatically generated for me, and here once again are the artifacts that were auto-detected based on doing a component scan of a specific one or more packages within the file. So that's pretty much it for Spring MVC. What I also want to do is show you our Webflow editor. So for those of you that may or may not be familiar with Webflow, but Webflow is another framework from Spring. It basically builds on top of Spring MVC. And rather, the basic idea is that you are defining the flow of your application using XML. So if I open up this folder, I can take a look at the flows, and we'll take a look at Manage Customers. And I'm going to take a look at the flow using just an XML editor. And this is basically the XML that defines the flow of my application. And once again, I can use Content Assist for configuring this and adding new attributes, et cetera, et cetera. But while I'm a really big fan of Spring Webflow, one of the difficulties is that the XML really is not very conducive to understanding the flow. I'm a picture guy. I like looking at things visually, and that's really where our Webflow editor comes into play. So if I open up the associated Webflow diagram for this particular flow, this gives me a graphical view. It's a lot easier for me to follow exactly what the flow of the application is and to make changes to the flow of the application. So I can look at this and I can see that, okay, this is where the flow starts. These are all of the individual options that are available from that particular state of the application. And then I can see the flow to and from the different states that exist in the application. And if I want to add new components here, I can actually drop them onto the canvas and configure those and wire them into the flow. Any changes that I make to the diagram are going to be immediately reflected in the XML file. And then also any changes that I make to the XML file will be reflected in the diagram. So if you're doing Webflow development, this is definitely one of the editors that you really want to take a look at, because it'll just save you a lot of time. And if nothing else, it's a great way of being able to create documentation for your flows. So if your flows have already been created and you don't really need to edit them anymore, you can still use this for kind of creating a graphical view of those flows that you can use as part of your documentation, or for communicating to business analysts or whoever the stakeholders might be in your project. So that is pretty much everything that I wanted to show. I think we've covered everything. How can you get MyEclipse for Spring? Well, if you're not currently using MyEclipse Spring, you can definitely download and try version 9.0 today. There's a 30-day trial available at the following URL. And if you're a MyEclipse Pro user, you can just use the add-on option in the dashboard tab of the Software and Workspace Center. We have a 50% off promotion going on right now where you get 50% off the $199 license fee. So for $99, you have a 1-year subscription to MyEclipse for Spring. It's, as I said, subscription-based, so you'll get all other versions that we release during that year. You'll get those automatically at no charge. And if you have any questions about subscriptions, please contact us at the email provided here. And finally, I just want to say thank you for joining us. This webinar will be available on our webinars page within the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll also, as we have additional webinars, we'll have the webinar page updated as we plan future webinars. And I also wanted to point out that we will be at Google I/O next week in the Developer Sandbox area. So if anyone in our audience is attending Google I/O and they want to talk to us about some of the things that you saw in this webinar, please stop by and take a look and come visit us at the Developer Sandbox. I'll be there, Jack will be there, and then one of our other colleagues will be there as well. You can reach us, encourage you to follow us at the following Twitter accounts, and then the MyEclipse for Spring YouTube channel. We have close to 30 or 40 different screencasts there, and these are in addition to our webinars. So if you're interested in a specific topic in MyEclipse for Spring, there's a good chance that we already have a screencast devoted to that. So we encourage you to check out that channel and in order to learn more about MyEclipse for Spring. And with that, I think next we'll go to the Q&A. Jack, I'll let you take over from here.
Great. Yeah, I think there were a few questions that came in that may be of interest to everybody. So the first question was, can I customize the way the code is generated? So this refers to our code generation capability they showed at the onset. So the answer is yes. We actually support the creation of a customization project, which drops all of the code generation templates that are used by the different layers, including the different user interface layers, the common services layer. All those code templates are actually using an Eclipse technology called JET from the Eclipse modeling framework. And so you can create a new customization project and then just pick the templates that you might want to change or override, make your changes, and then assign those projects. Once you have them modified, you can go to your project where you're going to do code generation and just pick the customization project you want to use. And so you can actually use different templates for different projects to get different effects depending on what you want to try to do.
And I'll just add that we actually have a tutorial on that exact topic, and I know we have a tutorial because I wrote it, and it's available, in the online help, and as well as it's available in the Eclipse help and in the online help. So if anyone's interested in trying that out, the tutorial will get you going pretty quickly.
Great. And so another question, we had the question, is MyEclipse for Spring free? So no, there is a free 30-day trial that you can download it, and get a sense for how you like the technology. And then there's the 50% off promotion that Neil just mentioned. And then you can go and get our different pricing options from the website, but basically $99 for MyEclipse for Spring. And it's a $35 upcharge for MyEclipse Pro users. Okay. And so another question, do you support code generation for Android? So I would say come and visit us at Google I/O or check back next week. That's a good question. And I think that's probably it for about the questions, Neil.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much, everybody, and good luck using MyEclipse for Spring.